Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom, win frugality. My hat's on a little weird right now, but as always, spend less, live more, earn your freedom, win frugality. Did I already say that? Anyways, we are in South Carolina, I think, maybe North Carolina, or Tennessee, Georgia, right at the conflux of these four states. I think this is High Water Falls right here. White Blazes Foothills Trail here. And yesterday we were talking about, and I'll show you guys here, this is a pretty cool spot actually. I really like this part of Appalachia. So yesterday we talked about women and their role as revolutionaries during revolutionary American history, right? And now, I'll be fair with you guys, I don't always know all of the history that I'm teaching you. So I have to do research whenever I make all these videos. And for this upcoming video, I thought I'd be able to do it in just one, but many of the worst crimes against humanity that have ever been perpetrated have been done in the name of the US government against the Native Americans. And I think I'm gonna need more than one episode to really go over just exactly what happened to the poor natives. So, yeah, women were definitely not dealt an equal deal in our society, especially early on, even though our Declaration of Independence did say, you know, all men are created equal. But society kind of did patronize the women at the very least, because we needed them, one, for babies, and two, to, like, cook. And if you're on the frontiers, then you really needed them for, like, the actual labor, right? So, during the window between the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, women's rights didn't see a whole lot of movement, but at the same time, the U.S. government was crushing the natives. So there's really not anything good that you can say about that, right? Marginalized members of the U.S., women, and slaves were organizing in this era, but a national land hunger propelled our young nation further to the west. Hashtag uh-oh. If women weren't dealt the best hand, Native Americans were given a truly raw deal indeed. While people organized internally, we purged the Native communities externally. This was done under what was called the Indian removal policies, which is a politically correct term for the appropriation of native lands. And this policy resulted in the clearance of lands all the way from Appalachia to Mississippi for settlement. So since then, this environment is when we see an American hero make his rise, Andrew Jackson. His early career was as a land speculator, not too far from here actually, where he logged 22 trips in Nashville for real estate deals in 1795 alone, doing speculative real estate deals. Hey, how are y'all? So from the natives' perspective, Jackson was a wealthy, profiteering speculator, merchant, and their biggest enemy in the Revolutionary era. But his heroic image was cultivated during the Expansionist War of 1812, where he got Florida, Canada, and Indian lands for our young Union. And it was during this time that we see Tecumseh, who is a Shawnee chieftain, and he unites resistance against this wave of expansion. And here's a quote from Tecumseh: "The only way to check this evil is for all red men to unite in claiming a common equal right in the land. For it was never divided, but belongs to all for the use of each." So, on the banks of Tallapoosa River in Alabama, Tecumseh's fiery rhetoric sufficed to gather a 5,000-man warrior band in 1811. And he spitefully screamed, "Let the white race perish. They seize your land, they corrupt your women, they trample on the ashes of your dead." Hashtag fearsome, right? So that was at the Battle of Tallapoosa River. And then Jackson very quickly from there, when he was elected president, set about clearing the Cherokee and the Creeks from Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, despite native resistance. So, and this was encouraged by Andrew Jackson, who said, and I quote, "If either party, Cherokee or whites, takes the property of the Red Sticks," who were the Native Americans that refused to leave, "the property belongs to those who take it." So the official government policy was, hey, if there's something that belongs to the Native Americans over here and you take it from them, it's yours. Unfortunately, Andrew Jackson's army, like his enlisted men, were not as enthusiastic about purging the native people from the land, and he ends up having multiple mutinies during this time period. Hashtag resist. So I guess not everybody in our nation's history was total scumbags, right? So then we go to the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, just to highlight some of the atrocities that go with Andrew's unbelievable career. Andrew Jackson, unbelievable. So that's one word that you could use to describe him. So Andrew's fame rose ever higher after a heroic historic victory over the Creeks with some Cherokee assistance. So he got assistance from the Cherokees. And then after the Cherokees won the battle for him, they were dismayed. The Cherokees were dismayed because Jackson took all the land and like reneged on their treaty. So he was gonna lose without Native American help. The natives helped him, and then he double crosses them. Oh, ow. Now, as the treaty commissioner, Jackson dictated a treaty confiscating over half of the Cherokees' territorial holdings. So he's the one who dictated the treaty, right? It took land away from the Creeks who had fought on his side at Horseshoe Bend. People that fought on his side agreed to give away their land as a result of this treaty. When Big Warrior, the Creek chief, confronted him, Jackson replied, "The United States would have been justified by the Great Spirit had they taken all the land of the nation. Listen, the truth is, the Creek did not respect the power of the United States. They thought we were an insignificant nation and would be overpowered by the British. We bleed our enemies in such cases to give them their senses." Jackson to Big Warrior in 1814. Hashtag savage. So that is our federal government's response. After our federal government uses Native American people to betray them, and then he betrays the Native people who fought for him. Levels of scumbaggery. And he's the president. Jackson's treaty with the Creeks also introduced private property into their society for the first time. So after this treaty was signed, the Indians start fighting amongst each other because before this treaty they didn't have private property. Now stuff belongs to each other, so he introduced the whole concept to them. Anyways, Native American society is going down. There's a lot more. That's all I've got so far today, but we're gonna end up with like an hour of Native American atrocities, of just really bad stuff, and it's horrible, but it needs to be heard. Yeah, I can't believe that our nation has done this stuff. Yeah, if you're Creek or Cherokee, I apologize. There's really not much that you can say about that. He's on the $20 bill, Andrew Jackson. And this isn't even the worst stuff that this dude has done. Yeah, so we're going to have to take some time today to digest some of the darkness of our nation's history. Honestly, some of what we've done to the Native Americans, I'll be quite honest, like, I was aware of how we treated the women and slaves and stuff, but like, for some reason, reading about what we did to the natives while I'm doing the research is like the most shocking to me. I'm not sure what it is about it, but we really mistreated them, like very, very historically badly, like, and it's just nobody acknowledges it. What, bro? The natives are such. That's like, what? It's like, what can you do for them, really? Like, what can you do for them, dude? Like, I feel for you, man. I wish I was there with you. I would have fought on your side, Native American heroes, Big Warrior Chief Creek. Anyways, this is a wandering author here, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. What are you guys doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your communities today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Till next time, I love y'all. I may actually try to do something different this time, and if the video continues after this, you'll know it worked. I'm gonna try and stitch together more than one clip. So we'll see what happens. And it appears that it worked, actually. Wow, I can't believe that we managed to pull that off. So, malevolence, darkness. I don't really like the way that my hair looks in the video right now, but we're just going to go with it. Malevolence, why am I saying this? Because Lewis Cass, again, whatever I cut just a second ago, we were discussing Jackson and his war of genocide against the Native Americans. And honestly, I'm going to be quite honest, like, the more research that I actually do into this stuff, here's a good quote. So from Lewis Cass, Secretary of War, Governor of Michigan. And I'm going to embellish this with a little accent. A principle of progressive improvement seems almost inherent in human nature. We are all striving in the career of life to acquire riches of honor, or power, or some other object whose possession is to realize the day's dreams of our imaginations, and the aggregate of these efforts constitutes the advance of society. But there is little of this in the constitution of our savages. That right there was the governor of Michigan, Lewis Cass, talking about Chief Black Hawk whenever he was killed. So basically, after Jackson was elected in 1828, Jackson pulled the Indian Removal Bill before Congress. This was his leading piece of legislation. That was like the thing he campaigned on. That was like his platform, Indian Removal Bill. And 70,000 Indians east of the Mississippi were forced westward. Among these holdouts, the Black Hawk War occurred, where we see Abraham Lincoln serve as an officer, and then whenever he's defeated, Chief Black Hawk has a very famous speech. I won't quote the whole thing. I didn't have time to write it all down here. But yeah, so that is where we got that delightful piece of insight about Lewis Cass, and there is quite a bit more coming up about, but here's some, Jackson became the governor of Florida Territory, and boy, he gave some great advice to his friend. Oh, I've got one more for you guys. We're in Isaquina Falls, actually, right now, which is, I believe, a Creek or Cherokee name, which is quite tragic. So, picking back up where we left off, Lewis Cass, Secretary of War and Governor of Michigan, was arguing for the removal of Indians from new territories in the journal, the North American Review in 1830. And let's embellish this one again. So, we must not regret the progress of civilization and improvement, the triumph of industry and art, by which these regions have been reclaimed, and over which freedom, religion, and science are extending their sway. I wish a smaller sacrifice that the aboriginal population had accommodated themselves in the inevitable change of their condition, but such a wish is vain. A barbarous people, dependent for subsistence upon the scanty and precarious supplies furnished by the chase, cannot live in contact with the civilized community. I think history kind of tells us which direction his argument goes. So again, what he's saying there is the Indians need to get out so civilization can get in. And then, honestly, the patronizing tone is what really does me in with these guys. So check this out. Same dude, Lewis Cass, 1825, a few years later, after he's removed the Indians from their territory at a Shawnee and Cherokee Treaty Council. Here is a quote from the same guy who made that one. Quoting him now. The United States will never ask for your land there. This I promise you, in the name of your great father, the President, that country he assigns to his red people to be held by them and their children's children forever. Unfortunately, within a decade or two, it's sayonara. Yeah, no, like, dude, there is no way, even if you remove the accents, the United States will never ask for your land there. This I promise you in the name of your great father, the President, that country he assigns to his red people to be held by them and their children's children forever. Fucking patronizing, right? Secretary of State, Governor of Michigan, Lewis Cass.